So in today's video, we're going to dig a little deeper into the illusory nature of thinking, but I promise tomorrow we'll have a very light, fun video. I'll announce the winners of the book contest, and I think I've got 4 or 5 books, so it'll be more than one book that I'll be giving away. And so, but before we get there, let's get a little bit deep into the illusion of thinking, because if you've heard the expression, don't believe everything you think, what if it's a little bit deeper than that? What if it's don't believe in thinking at all? But once we pierce the illusion of thought, all the thought illusions go along with it. The illusion of self, the illusion of ownership, the illusion of memory, and I'll talk about several others in the video. So let's deconstruct thinking itself, because not only will all these illusory worlds go along with it, but there's a good chance that anxiety itself could go along with it. I mean, we're spending time with meditation and mindfulness, and those are super helpful pursuits. I mean, the research on that is very difficult to argue with. It's overwhelming. But what if there's other paths up the mountain? And what if one of those paths is to pierce the illusion of thinking itself? And so let's start off with some simple thoughts, because you could have what we might call simple representations of reality, conscious experiences. And so one might be visual. And so you're looking for your keys, and then suddenly a visual image pops in your head of these keys on a desk. And it turns out when you look, that's where your keys actually were. So that's a useful representation. Or, as I said, the voice in the head, this inner dialogue that we live with so much. But again, with both of these examples, are they what they appear to be? So let's start with the pictorial version. And so again, I've done a video on this. Imagine, close your eyes, conjure up a picture of someone you know really, really well. And you say, yeah, there's a perfect image of this person's face in my head, in my mind's eye. Oh, well, let's let consciousness pierce that illusion, because once you put the light of consciousness on it, you discover it's not at all as clear as you think it is. It's a mess. In fact, it doesn't even look like your friend at all, and you can practice this. And it's the same with the voice in the head. It may seem like it's auditory, it may seem like it's linguistic, but it seems like it's in your voice. But when you really use consciousness to pierce the illusion, you're like, there's not really much of a difference between what I'm thinking is pictorial and what I'm thinking is auditory. They're not good simulations of reality at all. They're very, very poor. And again, but they trick us. And so you may be very hungry for pizza, and you may say, I can taste it in my mind's mouth. There's nothing, well, it would be weird to say, but something like that. But then you have the taste of pizza. In other words, consciousness is directly experienced. And in no way does that image seem to match the experience or the imagery. Okay, so those are simple thoughts, but let's take it a little further into what Baudrillard distinguished between simulation, which is what I've been talking about, these poor simulations, these thoughts that seem to represent consciousness, but they do so in a far more poor way than we might think so, and simulacra. So simulacra is when you're dealing with something a representation that doesn't even exist in reality itself, which is to say, it is something that cannot become conscious. And so that's something Baudrillard really didn't get into, but that's what I'm using this for. And that's what I mean when I say things like government. Can you become conscious of government? You can't. It's an abstraction that it so far exceeds being a poor abstraction that it no longer represents anything in reality. And we know this because you cannot become conscious of it. Political parties and fame. Fame is a great one, because fame is very new, but it's just an idea we think we have in our heads. And it's an idea we think we have in our heads about other people having ideas in their heads about the idea we have of ourselves, something along the lines of being fairly ridiculous. Now, that's not to say there are not real world consequences of things like fame. And so I talk about the Thomas theorem, which is anything believed to be true is true in its consequences. So that's really the point of this video. It's because we believe thoughts to be true that they are true in their consequences. So this is what's behind a panic attack. Someone is absolutely convinced that their thoughts are absolutely on track in terms of simulating reality very accurately. But what if these thoughts don't even exist? And it can get very tricky when it gets to really what is simulation and what is simulacra. And we have slowly moved from the world of simulation to the world of simulacra, where we're so convinced that governments exist. We're so convinced that political parties exist. But when it comes down to it, you can't even become conscious of what a Democrat is or what a Republican is. You can only think such things. Like you say, well, Joe's a Democrat. And it's an example. Okay, well, be conscious of the category itself. And I've talked about this so much in other videos that that's the illusion of thinking. We think in terms of categories, but when it comes down to it, they're simulacra because we cannot become conscious of categories themselves, only the examples that form the categories. So this comes down to, again, a line from The Matrix. And so it's a conversation between Morpheus and Neo says, are you telling me one day I'll be able to dodge bullets? And Morpheus says, no, Neo, I'm telling you one day you won't have to. What if that is an exact parallel with what we're dealing with thinking? We're so busy with so many psychological exercises and meditations trying to dodge intrusive thoughts. What if, just ponder the possibility, with the thing we're trying to dodge doesn't even exist?